Now, Tanzania has lifted its ban on agricultural imports from South Africa as well as Malawi. This comes just 2 days after imposing it in its response to trade restrictions from both countries. Now, the reversal follows swift diplomatic engagements with South Africa's International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, even welcoming the move as a testament to the power of dialogue and regional cooperation. For more on this discussion, let's bring in AgriSA CEO Johann Kotzé, who joins us now. Mr. Kotzé, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. Good morning to you then. Let's just start at the beginning, if you will. Let's remind our audience, why exactly did we get here? What actually happened? How did we have a break in ties when it comes to imports from South Africa to Tanzania?
As I understood it, there was a claim from the Minister of Agriculture in Tanzania that they could not export bananas to South Africa. Well, then our DDG of Plant and Animal Health, Minister Sarahi, then said that but there was never an application for bananas to be imported or exported from Tanzania into South Africa. So I think what I also, and you mentioned it when you started, I think what I've learned out of this and what is good for South Africa, it lasted 2 days, the ban, but there was immediate reaction from South Africa, immediate communication and engagement, and thereafter it was open again. So a bit of a testimony that we can do it, and that Africa is an important destiny for South African produce. And also we need some imports from the rest of from Africa into South Africa. So a bit of a testimony of that we can. And well done to our Minister Lamola in opening it up again.
Yeah, I mean, one could say that this is the kind of action we possibly may need with a more willing participant out of the United States as well. Then we could possibly get the same thing done. How much agri-trade does South Africa have with Tanzania, if you don't mind me asking, if you know?
About 1%. So we don't export that much.
Okay.
And we have a trade surplus to Tanzania. So Tanzania is exporting to South Africa coffee, a bit of ginger, which is an interesting one. So the type of produce we don't do in South Africa. But even if it's 1%, and I think we've said that about America also, it's only 6% of our total exports. It's not about the percentage, it's about the importance, and sometimes it's significant produce that might be small but significant for us or them, and there needs to be a bit of a trade. So, but the main thing about this is, and I think we learned that from the kind of trade spat we have with America also, is you need to engage and you need to have a relationship.
Yeah.
And if something happens, and credit to our Minister Lamola, that when it happened, immediately there was some action, engagement, good communication, and it was opened up again.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's where it needs to stop. Now we need to go back and prioritize and put ourselves into an export kind of mode and thinking of to say what is important, where should we focus, and how do we engage and communicate better and foster relationships with trade partners.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on that actually a little bit more as well. But I wanted to find out if you think perhaps there's going to be some sort of reset in trade relations globally. Are people going to start looking at trade a little bit differently, particularly in trade between South Africa and the rest of the world then? Because you're seeing some partners perhaps relook at, their trade relations a little bit, of course, off the back of the United States having to rejig itself too.
I think we put a lot of emphasis in America,
yeah,
and what the Trump administration did to trade worldwide. And it's not just to us. We were not singled out as one country that got a bit of a backhand on the 30%. I don't think we should go there. I think where we need to go is go back to 2019-20, where we had the lockdown issue. And where trade became an issue because there were no logistic channels for us to trade. And there came, I think, a different mindset to trade then. I think the Trump administration brought just this whole thing up again, and there's a new kind of reset in the world. It's not just between South Africa and America and China and America. I think it's worldwide. So what I've learned, we've been there to go and have a look on what trade relationships we could foster from agriculture and business. And I think what I've learned from that was that there's a massive need for a reset. And the reset is not to bow down and say, yes, sir, we will do, or no, we don't. It's a reset in relationships and the way that we understand trade. So bilateral relationships is going to be a different concept. I think we need to understand the concept differently, that bilateral trade is not the strong one and the small one, and now all of a sudden you bow down. South Africa is strategically well positioned for world trade, not just American trade, trade all around the world. And we need to position ourselves in the strategic position that we play. That's the one thing. The second thing is I think India is a big player in how to negotiate relationships, where they have the ability to have relationships with all parties in the world, all big countries, even though they might have a different geopolitical understanding, they still foster their relationships and they don't focus on the differences, but rather on what we could do together and what trade is needed. So I think that's maybe a bit of a reset. For us in South Africa, I think it was a wake-up call. And the wake-up call is that we need to relook our export position and what we do. In saying that you need to have an understanding of a strategic play of South Africa into Africa and the rest of the world, and for the rest of the world into South Africa.
Yeah.
And then understand that and start to kind of deal with that concept. So not to wait for somebody to put a ban on us or a trade restriction, but rather foster better relationships and see where we should push our products into the world.
I mean, you speak of where else we could go. Just a most recent example is the reopening of Apple's going to Thailand as well, which of course happened for the first time in, I think, 16 years, if I'm correct on that one too. So a significant move in trying to find different areas in which to grow and find revenue areas. Is it easy to do so when the world seems a little bit more closed off and wanting to kind of find what's best suited for themselves? It feels like there's a lot of protectionism going on politically, which then affects how trade is also done.
I don't think it's protectionism in the bad sense of it, where you want to protect yourself. I think it's an inwards focus to say, but how do we utilize what we have in our own country? And then to a certain extent, how do we protect our food sovereignty in your own food security in your own country? So what we do see is worldwide deglobalization is taking part. And what we mean by that is countries are looking inwards to themselves to say, what do we need to do to be more food secure out of the agricultural perspective? So there is a change in the world regarding the view thereof. My take is, I think what I've learned coming from America is to go back into South Africa and say, who are we? And what do we produce in South Africa, and where does it go to? The largest partner for South Africa is Africa. And I think logistically, it's a big play for us because it's the closest that we could trade with. And then I think it's more than just trade. It's social, economic sustainability. It is safety and stability in our region itself. So a different concept than just putting out produce and pushing it into markets. So the reset came through, we could not trade. And all of a sudden there was an inwards looking to say, but where does it start? And it actually starts with food security.
Yeah.
So firstly, inwards in South Africa, but then we also play a major role into the food security of countries neighboring us, which plays a major role into our social economic stability. So if Namibia is not stable, we're not going to be stable. If Botswana is not stable, Zimbabwe. So do you understand the strategic play of trade? It's not just a bartering, you give and I pay and you give. It's far greater than that. And I think the wake-up call for me from America was to say, South Africa, we need to wake up. We need to understand our role play. We are significant. We might be small, and we could produce brilliant produce. cost effective and quality wise. But what is our play and where should we focus on for the greater of South Africa and the greater of the African region?
Yeah, and I mean, that then brings the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement into significant play here. It's been signed by quite a few countries, but it feels like we haven't seen the effectiveness of it. There hasn't been this vigorous intent to actually make it happen. Is that what's missing here for Africa and trade?
I think it is missing, and maybe two things about that. There are many things that you can add to it, but maybe just two things out of an agricultural perspective. The plant and animal health status of each country plays a major role in I would say, the production capacity of that country. So to open up trade, we need to be on the same levels. I can't be on a plant health status level, say A level. And then there's a free trade between countries where they're on a C and a D level because they have diseases we don't have. Because then you put the whole country or the whole region to a certain extent at risk. So it's not so easy just to uplift and then push. Have a look at the FMD status we have now. It happens, and now you need to protect. And which is not maliciously, it's actually to protect the status of animals in a certain region. So you can't just open up trade. But there is a major need to open up the trade and to overcome these issues, which is not easy to overcome. The next one is maybe, I think, a more difficult one. Our cold chain or the value chain in the cold chain space logistically is not well developed in Africa. So have a look at the logistics just to get maize from South Africa into Zimbabwe or into Tanzania. If you take the African trade concept, so logistically the infrastructure in Africa is not well supportive of an African free trade. So it's easier to import from Mexico for instance, for Zimbabwe or Zambia specifically, maize or wheat, than us exporting it to them due to the logistic kind of concepts that we need to deal with. So African free trade is a brilliant concept. And I think it's going to serve Africa well. But there are many barriers to entry, which is not easy to overcome. It's going to take us time. But I do believe there's a great willingness, and we need to push as African countries to open up the African free trade and to support African free trade. If you think 44% of all our produce exported in South Africa goes to Africa. Now, if you can take off the limits that we have or the barriers we have logistically in the cold chain logistic value chain, can you imagine what it would mean for Africa or South Africa or southern region of Africa? And I think that's what we need to focus on, to uplift this and make sure that we do have this African free trade, although the infrastructure is a great barrier.
Yeah. Look, a lot of investment into it is certainly necessary among many things, but we certainly hope the politics then get stripped away, because that is what hinders it primarily as well. Mr. Kotzé, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. Johann Kotzé is the AgriSA CEO joining us there as we talk about the lifting then of the ban.